The CRTC wants to know how radio, TV, and digital platforms in Canada can best meet the needs of Indigenous viewers, listeners, and content creators. Join the conversation today at crtc.gc.ca/indigenous-broadcasting.
A message from the Government of Canada.
Le CRTC veut savoir comment la radio, la télévision et les plateformes numériques au Canada peuvent mieux répondre aux besoins des spectateurs, auditeurs et créateurs de contenu autochtones. Joignez-vous à la conversation aujourd'hui au crtc.gc.ca/radiodiffusion-union autochtone.
Un message du gouvernement du Canada.
I'm Rick Harp. This is your APTN News Brief for Friday, May 10th. And the entirety of today's brief is dedicated to the ongoing trial of alleged serial killer Jeremy Skibicki, who recently told the court it was he who killed 4 Indigenous women, Rebecca Contois, Morgan Harris, Marcedes Myran, and Buffalo Woman. The decision now before the judge is whether this is an NCR case, not criminally responsible owing to a mental disorder. And on Thursday, the court heard what Winnipeg police found when they searched Skibicki's apartment. With more, T.R. Wheatley. A note that what follows includes some disturbing details.
In court, it was revealed that the forensic identification unit that processed Jeremy Skibicki's apartment after his arrest back in May 2022 found DNA samples of all 4 women that Skibicki admitted to killing. But those aren't the only DNA samples. In total, there are 16 DNA samples of women, including 9 that haven't been identified yet. The Crown's lone witness was Winnipeg Police Constable Jan DeVries. He was the exhibit officer documenting evidence from Skibicki's apartment, the building, and the back alley. DeVries provided over 130 photos of the scene. They were discussed in court, but weren't shown because of their graphic nature. Amongst those photos were clothing items of Rebecca Contois, Morgan Harris, and Marcedes Myran. A reversible jacket belonging to Buffalo Woman was also among the photos. Court heard this wasn't found in the apartment, but it was later recovered by police from a man who bought it off Skibicki on Facebook Marketplace. There were other items in the apartment with DNA of the victims: coffee cups, pillows, and mattresses. Police documented a total of 16 different female profiles. One of those samples was that of Ashley Shingus. She went missing in 2022. In January 2023, her father told the media that his daughter could be Buffalo Woman, and he gave his DNA to the police that ruled out Shingus as Buffalo Woman, so her identity is still unknown. Court has so far not heard anything from Skibicki himself about Shingus, but her DNA in his apartment is among the Crown and Defense statement of facts. DeVries also told court about the bathroom in Skibicki's apartment. Earlier this week, we heard that all 4 women were killed in the bathtub. DeVries said WPS used a visualization spray to process his bathroom. He told court the spray shows blood splatter that's been cleaned up and can't be seen with the naked eye. In his words, the bathtub was very fluorescent and that it covered the entire bathtub. Screenshots of Skibicki were also mentioned in court. They are from video surveillance of him throwing out garbage bags prior to the search of his place. As we learned earlier this week, the search only happened because a garbage salvager called 911. He was rummaging through the bins behind Skibicki's apartment when he came across some remains of Rebecca Contois. T.R. Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
For more on this trial, be sure to visit aptnnews.ca. And if you find yourself triggered by any aspect of this report, supports are available 24/7 at 1-844-431-6649. More news in a moment.
Hi, I'm Dennis Ward, host of Face to Face. Coming up on our next episode, I'll be sitting down with filmmaker and producer Lisa Meaches. We'll be taking a look back on her career and much more. Tune in Tuesday on APTN or listen to the Face to Face podcast. Download and subscribe on your favorite player.
Video of a man harassing families of serial killer Jeremy Skibicki's victims has sparked outrage on social media. The video, recorded outside of the RBC Convention Center in downtown Winnipeg, depicts the man screaming profanities at the families. As he becomes physically aggressive, a person can be heard telling others not to engage. The man, whose identity has not been officially confirmed, is repeatedly told in the video to leave the area, and he eventually walks away. And earlier yesterday, a different man was barred from entering the Skibicki trial courtroom after he was deemed a potential security risk to the victims' families. Still with that trial, our Truth and Politics panel has their say on events just reported. Winnipeg Free Press columnist Negan Sinclair and Jennifer Leywitz of Warshield Consulting in Prince Albert.
This is an issue not about guilt any longer. This is an issue about whether he was mentally capable of understanding A, what he did, and then B, what sort of responsibility that he understood, which is the claim of non-criminally responsible. If found that he is incapable mentally of understanding his actions, then this would be in a protected facility of various different security clearances, that he would be in like a mental health center, lockup. This was a very similar situation claimed by Vince Lee, who was an individual on a bus a number of years ago here in Manitoba who decapitated, murdered an individual, and then claimed not criminally responsible. So the medical world then inherited that individual. That's very different than this case. I see this as not being able to carry a lot of water, this claim. There's a lot of issues that this trial is bringing up. And there's also a lot of friction between people who have had this issue politicized by the previous provincial government, who said they were not going to search for women in landfills. And therefore, people feel galvanized who generally might already have strong feelings towards Indigenous communities, and particularly women, and very negative ones. And so as a result, this has brought a lot of issues to the surface that comes going back to the provincial government. And people feel that this issue is kind of a linchpin for seeing that Indigenous peoples get everything all the time, somehow claiming things that they don't deserve. Or the fact is that this is a court trial in which a very serious issue, long-standing issue, is coming to a head here in Manitoba. We have thousands of Indigenous women and girls, Two-Spirit peoples who have gone missing, who have been murdered by individuals such as this. This is not just a single solitary issue.
The praying that they're doing, like reading some of the news articles where he was literally showing up to where our most vulnerable are, which is in homeless shelters and on the street, to allegedly formulate plans on how to lure them back. And that's the biggest problem, is right now we're seeing those social issues, addictions, homelessness, poverty. And as more and more of our people end up in these homeless shelters or on the streets, there are going to be people out there that recognize that as an opportunity and unfortunately use that as a way to take their lives. I think the biggest thing here is the preventative measures, ensuring that our women and girls are not ending up in vulnerable situations, ending up in homeless shelters, ending up on the streets, whether that be for sex work or in other capacities, and ensuring that we're protecting them before it even gets to that point. Because right now, governments at all different levels, provincial and federally especially, are failing our people. So they're ending up in these positions. And then, we do talk about the changes that need to be made in the preventative as well. And then also the response. So the police response and stuff like that. And, we talk about a lot about diversity and inclusion, but it doesn't seem to be getting better. And we did see in the last Manitoba election how there was a literal campaign happening to not search the landfill. And it's like the way that we just so casually downplay the lives of Indigenous people in this country, the fact that there has been a long-standing history of Indigenous people not being treated fairly, not only by the justice system, but their lives being invalued by police services and emergency services when they go missing. Murdered and missing Indigenous women is a huge deal in Canada. And do you think these perpetuators don't see that and know that they might not be held as responsible or have as heavy of a hand put down on them in the justice system? I see Indigenous people and I see Indigenous advocates singing to the rooftops all the time about this. But until society essentially wakes up and starts to advocate alongside with us, then I don't know if it'll ever change.
And that's your APTN News Brief for Friday, May 10th. I'm Rick Harp.